Hi everyone, I'm Vijay Sambamurthi. Welcome again to another episode of The Uncluttered View. Uh, Today we have a very interesting guest who I have personally known for a long time as well. And he's going to be, answering my questions and giving his uncluttered view on some very interesting issues on which he's the expert. And I'm very delighted to welcome Mr. Richard Rekky to the show. Hi, Richard. Welcome to the Uncluttered View.
Thank you, Vijay. It's really a pleasure to be on your show. And like we know each other for so long, and I've watched you on so many programs, and I have a lot of regard and respect for the way you conduct yourself. Thank
You,
you.
Richard. That's very kind of you, and you know this. I've said this to you many times. I have similarly a lot of respect and admiration for everything that you've done. So, for the benefit of everybody, let me give a quick introduction to you. So, Richard Rekky is a very good friend. We've known each other for more than a decade. We have very frequently collaborated and interacted. We have been each other's moderators and each other's panelists at many conferences. So when we were doing this show, it was very natural for me to think of Richard to be one of our very first guests. And it was very kind of him to accept, given his busy schedule. So let me give a quick introduction. So Richard Rekky used to be the CEO of KPMG India for several years. And even before that, he's a very respected and well-regarded industry veteran in the finance and accounting world. He has been a Big Four fixture since at least the past 3 or 4 decades. So he has a lot of experience behind him. And most recently, he was with KPMG India for almost a little more than a decade as their India CEO. And after that, he has now started a new innings with Grant Thornton, and I will let him talk about that. I don't want to steal his thunder. So, Richard, if you could just introduce yourself and your new role at GT, that'd be great.
So, like you rightly said, I've got 30 to 40 years of experience in consulting accounting firms. And earlier I was in Arthur Andersen, then came to KPMG. And then I was in the Middle East on KPMG. I was on the global board of KPMG also. So I have a lot of experience in this area. And after finishing with the Middle East, I was just thinking, should I hang up my boots or what should I do? And Grant Thornton, with whom has been discussing with me for a long time now, maybe last 8-10 years, but somehow nothing worked out. And then we thought together that let's build the first Indian global multinational firm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have renamed it GT Bharat.
Okay.
And so we want to take this firm global and take it onto the global stage and new certain things I can't talk about, but there are a lot of developments happening in that area.
Wonderful. That's very invigorating to hear. That whole rebranding to Bharat using that's a very powerful message in itself as to what you're looking to lead with is very good.
And just to tell you so that people have it very clear, this is not after anybody said about Bharat. This was done in 2017.
Wow.
Once I and the CEO was sitting, I said, why don't you call it GT Bharat?
Okay.
And that's how he liked it and just went ahead with it.
No, it makes sense. I mean, because I think it's a very powerful branding tool as well, because you are using the fact that it is not just limited to the mainstream cities in
Correct.
India, which have historically gotten a lot of love from professional services firms.
Yeah.
So I think that messaging is coming out quite well. And good luck with that. And
Thank you.
Of course, we will talk more about that
once
the camera stops rolling. But now coming to this session. So before we go into the serious stuff, where of course I'm looking forward to your insights on some very tough questions, but very important ones. But before that, for the sake of our audience, why don't you walk us through your personal journey? I mean, obviously, more than 4 decades of being in the same thing. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. I'm almost 3 decades. I've been a lawyer for 28 years now. So I get asked the same question that don't you get bored of doing the same thing? So let me start with that. I mean, what has kept you kind of excited and motivated, and to stick in the same or similar field for over 40 years? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so I'll tell you where it started because I'm not of a family of accountants. I was the first accountant in my family who did chartered accountancy. And my father and my uncles, everybody, they were all engineers. And it all happened by accident. I was in school sitting there, and my principal walks up to me and said, "So, what do you plan to do after school?" And I said, "I want to go and join the merchant navy." He said, "Did you think of chartered accountancy?" And suddenly this thing got into my head. I didn't know about it, and then I started finding out what's the career and profession found in those times. Possibly that was one of the careers you could have taken if you're not taking science.
Of course.
So that was one of the careers. So that's how I got in. And even my father, after I got in, his whole thing was you go and join the corporate world. They pay well. You'll get perks. You'll get this, that, and all. Somehow I just got into this accounting firm. At that time, it was a mid-sized Indian firm. And I just loved the work. And I still love it.
Okay.
So it is, if you ask me, for me, it's not a job. For me, it is to go and build something, to create something for the country, to advise companies, to advise individuals, how to make them successful. Man, how, for me, if you ask me whatever, in my small, humble way, my greatest contribution, number of leaders that one has built along the way, and or across the firms. And so it's been, and not even leaders, even some junior people. So you really feel good about it.
Yes, who are leaders in their own way,
Yes,
right? Leaders
yeah.
across the ranks.
Yes,
absolutely.
true.
It's the traits that you instill in them and help them with them. It's great. And if I may say so on a lighter note, I was smiling when you said that about merchant navy, etc., because that's typically the kind of thing that one says, when one is in the teens or something.
Yeah.
And in those days, there were really 2 or 3 career options,
Yes.
right? You either became an engineer or a doctor,
Yeah.
or there was accountancy.
Yeah.
So it's good that way that you had the clarity to justify why you wanted that and look at it. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that, Richard. So let's go to the business end of this
Sure.
show now. So we are going to focus on a broad series of topics which are largely economic / geopolitical / financial. Uh, you know, so some of it are a little bit judgment based.
Yeah.
And again, I'll repeat for the purpose of the audience of the show that the views that we express or share on this show do not represent the views of our respective organizations. They are meant to be personal views, and the purpose of Uncluttered View as a show is to create some discussion where people share their views honestly with respect to issues that matter. So that's what we are going to focus on. So I will start by asking a little bit of a historical question, Richard, in the Indian context. As we all know, India liberalized in the early 90s after almost 4 or 5 decades of heavily regulated and very, very sort of isolated economy. We suddenly, liberalized ourselves and became a privatized economy in the early 90s. And now it's been almost, more than 3 decades since that happened. So, in your view and experience, you obviously started your career even before the liberalization. I started my career right after liberalization. So we both have, I think, slightly different perspectives to when we started our careers. But I would say in the last 20 years or so, our experiences have been quite similar. So I would love to get your perspective on where do you see the Indian economy, relative to the global economy? How has it evolved? Say in a pre-liberalization context to and immediately after liberalization to where we are today.
So, as we all know, 1991 was India's year of liberalization and true freedom and coming into their own. And I can say that I am one of the beneficiaries of that liberalization because I've seen the period before that. I know what for me, very simple. How do I look at your compensation? And maybe 4-5 years later, as the economy is liberalized, I think the real impact of liberalization actually came in about 96, not actually 91. 91, they were opening up, so people were still feeling their way around and, trying to understand what to do with this new economy. But India was on the brink of disaster. There were foreign reserves were down. I mean, just enough to pay 15 days payments of their imports.
Very
so
stark.
very, very. And then came Dr. Manmohan Singh. I think if we didn't have Dr. Manmohan Singh, I shudder to think what we would have had, honestly. He brought liberalization. A lot of us at that time criticized him, saying, why is he not opening up more? Why is he gone one step and stopped? Then came the Asian crisis, Asian tigers, We withstood that crisis because of his policies, and number of crises came after that. So I think 1991 was when we opened up. A lot of foreign investors started coming in. FIs came in, FDI came in, a lot of money came in. New bunch of entrepreneurs got born. So when you started your career, you were dealing with a bit of the old, but a lot of the new entrepreneurs who came in had a very different view on how they want to do business. Export markets opened up, and everybody wanted to be global, international. And we also wanted to be, how do we want to be part of the global supply chain? But the biggest push for India at that time was the IT industry and that back office processing. And the one thing that really helped India at that time, because even China was trying to build it out, but they didn't have English-speaking people, and India had a huge number of English-speaking people. So the entire IT industry boomed. Today, it's one of our most progressive industries. And we also brought in a lot of computerization, IT systems came in, telecom industry boomed. I would say that India was one of the front runners as far as telecom is concerned, even more modern than the US and everybody else. So we actually went with the late mover advantage. This was one industry which proved where you have little government interference, you can see where an industry booms. Because this had no interference with the government. It was just free economy. Players came in, they did their stuff, and everybody succeeded. Also, one thing happened because of the telecom sector, a lot of economic activity got into your hands. Suddenly in your arm, in your hand, you had an instrument which could get you economic activity, business, setting it across. And so I think a lot of things changed. And of course, our challenges continue. We have challenges. We had challenges at that time of labor reforms, land reforms, our regulations. We were too regulated, like you said. We were a closed economy. And so that didn't get fully addressed. And of course, our infrastructure was the pit. So there was a huge amount of expenditure on. And also, we didn't have too much funds available at that time. And then you saw all the private equity coming into India and funding new businesses and taking it forward. So I think the current generation is a beneficiary to all of that. And we've just grown from there. And the other one point I'd like to say here, that the Indian economy has been growing since then at about 6 to 7% for 30 years. So this is massive. Yeah, this is massive and this is impressive. And that's why we are about a 4 trillion. There's always the talk, are we 3.5, 4, whatever. But we are somewhere there between that $4 trillion economy, let's say. And all of us are doing pretty okay.
Yes, I agree. And I'm also thinking back to, those early days of liberalization. And I had just started out as a lawyer back then. And it was a little bit like, getting thrown into the deep end, because we suddenly were doing things which lawyers with 10, 12 years of experience were normally do. And a lot of the laws were very new as well.
Correct.
So this interesting thing that you mentioned about infrastructure. So I had the privilege of working on one of the early infrastructure deals. And the job given to me as a fairly young associate was to prepare the list of approvals that had to be taken. And such is the nature of the beast that back then there was hardly any information available in the public domain, right? Everything had to be sourced through a lot of painstaking research, the old-fashioned way. No internet, nothing in those days, right? So ultimately, I figured out that you needed as many as, I think it was, the number was 54 or 56 approvals for one power plant. And you know, by the time I put up that list, I felt I felt also very elated, but I also felt what a waste of my time this has been, right? Because we don't have the resources.
Sure.
We're just running around trying to, but I think we have come a long way on that front as well. I think the economic prosperity has also been met with or also partially caused by the investments in infrastructure.
Sure.
So our bandwidth today, what we get is one of the best in the world at the price that we pay for it.
Yeah.
Similarly, our physical infrastructure is also, in terms of roads and all that, is tremendously improved. So all that resonates with me, what you said about,
One more thing I'll tell you, not many people have realized it. So at that time, the economy was growing 7, 8%, even it went up to 11% once I remember. And I'm not sure many people realized. I was at a panel and some very senior political leaders were also sitting there. They said, we didn't realize what you saw. So what I said, one of the biggest causes or one of the causes of India's growth was the women participation in the workforce.
Of course.
Because that caused a lot of GDP growth. Because earlier there was one person earning and the whole family living. Now there were two people earning. And the women started doing well, started succeeding. So a huge amount of contribution of India's GDP goes to the women coming into the workforce at scale. At scale.
No, that's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
It's a pity that it was never utilized or realized before that.
Yes.
And so that's the point. I mean, the economic changes also bring about social changes, which in turn feed more economic changes.
Yes.
So it's like a nice cycle.
True.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks for that historical perspective, Richard, which I always enjoy talking about historical perspective because it has that sweet taste of nostalgia which goes with it. Sometimes people say that you tend to overlook some things when you're looking back on a certain era. But I think overall, I think some bold measures were taken in the early 90s for sure, which and in equal measure, there were some poor decisions taken, like the Enron, the way it was executed.
Yeah.
So, but it was a good learning, and I think the Indian system has learned and evolved very well over the next couple of decades. There is a moment of huge opportunity for India right now. US-China relations have continued to go downhill. What do you think is the strategy that India should adopt here?
As people move out of China, their natural ally should have been India. If India wants to get onto the manufacturing scale, China is their best partner. Unfortunately, despite having a booming IT industry, we never went for R&D. We never went to build our own products.
It's the easier, lower hanging fruit.
I think what we need is a repeat of 1991, but with very different kind of reforms.
I would say it's a historic opportunity to make some very bold reformatory moves, which can impact for the next 20 years.
Rewrite the laws for a modern economy. This is India's decade. We are sitting at a golden moment, I would say.